Mass panic is supposed to happen when there's real danger. These incidents show that sometimes all it takes is a misunderstanding, a hoax, or a rumor to send entire populations into hysteria over absolutely nothing. 1. The War of the Worlds radio broadcast in 1938 caused mass panic when listeners thought Earth was actually being invaded by Martians. Orson Welles adapted H.G. Wells's science fiction novel as a radio drama for CBS on October 30th, 1938. The broadcast was presented in the style of breaking news bulletins interrupting regular programming, reporting that Martians had landed in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, and were attacking with heat rays. An estimated 6 million people heard the broadcast, and about 1.2 million believed it was real. People who tuned in late missed the disclaimer that it was fiction. Panic spread across the United States. People fled their homes, called police, and prepared for alien invasion. Police stations were flooded with calls. Some people wet towels and tied them around their faces, thinking the Martians were using poison gas. Others loaded guns, preparing to fight aliens. The panic was intensified by the realistic news bulletin format. By the end of the broadcast, announcements clarified it was fiction, but damage was done. Newspapers the next day reported mass hysteria. Some reports of the panic were exaggerated by newspapers competing with radio for audiences, but genuine panic definitely occurred in some areas. Orson Welles held a press conference apologizing. The Federal Communications Commission investigated but took no action. The stupidity wasn't the broadcast itself. It was clearly presented as a Halloween drama, but rather how many people accepted that Martians were invading without verification, how newspapers exaggerated the panic, and how a radio drama caused some people to abandon their homes based solely on hearing interrupted programming. The incident became a famous case study in mass psychology and media influence. 2. The Millennium Bug, Y2K, caused worldwide panic that computer systems would fail on January 1, 2000, leading to societal collapse. The concern was that computers programmed with two-digit year codes, 98 for 1998, would malfunction when the year rolled over to ur0, potentially interpreting it as 1900. There were legitimate concerns about some systems, but the panic far exceeded the actual risk. Media coverage amplified fears suggesting planes would fall from the sky, power grids would fail, nuclear missiles might launch accidentally, and society would collapse. People stockpiled food, water, and supplies. Some built bunkers. Survivalists prepared for the apocalypse. Governments and corporations spent an estimated $300 billion globally preparing for Y2K. People withdrew money from banks fearing accounts would be wiped. Some people quit jobs and moved to rural areas to survive the collapse. Religious groups predicted the end times. New Year's Eve 1999 was tense worldwide. When midnight came, nothing happened. No planes crashed, power stayed on. Nuclear missiles stayed in silos. Banks functioned normally. Some minor glitches occurred. A few websites displayed wrong dates. Some systems had minor errors, but nothing catastrophic. The anticipated global collapse never materialized. The stupidity was the disproportionate panic relative to actual risk. While Y2K preparations were prudent and may have prevented some problems, the media-fueled hysteria about societal collapse was absurd. Billions were spent, people destroyed their lives preparing, and ultimately New Year's 2000 passed with fewer problems than a typical software update. 3. A false ballistic missile alert in Hawaii in 2018 caused mass panic when residents received warnings that a nuclear attack was imminent. On January 13, 2018 at 8:07 a.m., Hawaii's emergency alert system sent a message to mobile phones statewide. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. The alert was terrifying given Hawaii's position and tensions with North Korea. People panicked immediately. Parents put children in storm drains for shelter. Families said goodbye to each other thinking they were about to die. Some people abandoned their cars on highways to seek shelter. Hotels moved guests into ballrooms away from windows. A man suffered a heart attack from stress. People were crying, praying, and preparing for nuclear annihilation. The alert was transmitted to television and radio as well. It took 38 minutes before a correction was issued stating it was a false alarm. The false alarm was caused by human error. An employee at the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency accidentally clicked the wrong button during a shift change drill, sending the real alert instead of a test. The employee reportedly misunderstood the drill and thought it was real. The incident revealed serious flaws in alert systems. There was no quick way to retract a false alert. The employee who sent it was fired. Emergency management officials were disciplined. Systems were redesigned with safeguards. The stupidity was a statewide emergency system that could be triggered by one person clicking the wrong button with no quick cancellation mechanism, causing 38 minutes of terror among 1.4 million people who genuinely believed they were about to be hit by a nuclear missile. 4. The Monkey Man of Delhi caused mass panic in India in 2001 when reports of a monkey-like creature attacking people led to vigilante groups and mass hysteria. Reports emerged of a creature described as half monkey, half man attacking people at night in Delhi. Victims described scratches and bites from the mysterious figure. Panic spread rapidly. People armed themselves with sticks and formed neighborhood watch groups. Several deaths occurred. People fell from buildings trying to escape the imagined creature, and at least one person was beaten to death by a mob who mistook him for the Monkey Man. Police received thousands of reports. Some people claimed to have photographed the creature. Mass hysteria spread across Delhi with millions of people scared to sleep. People spent nights on rooftops with lights on. Schools closed. The Indian government investigated seriously. Eventually, authorities determined the Monkey Man didn't exist. The attacks were likely a combination of actual animal encounters. Macaque monkeys are common in Delhi. Mass hysteria, misidentified shadows, and some cases of domestic abuse blamed on the creature. The scratches people displayed were likely from falls, existing wounds, or self-inflicted in hysteria. No physical evidence of any creature was ever found. The panic subsided after weeks. The stupidity was an entire major city gripped by fear of a creature that didn't exist, resulting in real deaths from panic, neighborhood vigilante violence, and mass psychogenic illness, where people developed symptoms from mass hysteria rather than actual attacks. 5. The Face on Mars photograph from 1976 caused panic among some people who believed it was evidence of alien civilization. NASA's Viking 1 orbiter photographed a mesa on Mars that, due to angle and lighting, resembled a human face. The image was released publicly. Tabloids and conspiracy theorists claimed it was an alien structure or monument built by Martian civilization. Books were published arguing the face proved intelligent life on Mars. Some people panicked thinking aliens had existed on Mars and might still be there or coming to Earth. Pseudoscientific groups formed around the face. Despite NASA's explanation that it was a natural formation made face-like by shadows, conspiracy theories persisted for decades. When higher resolution images were taken by Mars Global Surveyor in 1998 and 2001, they showed the face was simply an eroded mesa that looked nothing like a face from different angles. The face-like appearance was entirely due to low resolution and shadows in the original image. The stupidity was that people panicked about aliens based on a low-resolution photograph that looked face-like purely due to pareidolia, humans' tendency to see faces in random patterns, ignored NASA scientists' explanations, and maintained belief even after clear high-resolution photos showed it was just a mesa. The panic was entirely created by misinterpreting shadows and refusing to accept scientific explanation. 6. A clown panic in 2016 spread across multiple countries when reports of creepy clowns lurking in public spaces caused schools to close and police to patrol. It started with social media reports of people dressed as menacing clowns appearing near schools, in woods, and on streets. Reports spread rapidly online. The phenomenon quickly spread across the United States, then to Canada, Australia, and Europe. While some clown sightings were real pranks or hoaxes, most were either misidentified regular clowns or complete fabrications. Mass panic ensued. Schools closed or went on lockdown. Police received thousands of calls. Some people bought weapons for protection. Clown costumes were banned in some areas. Professional clowns saw their businesses destroyed. Some people who were spotted in clown costumes were attacked. A few pranksters were arrested. The panic was amplified by social media where false reports spread faster than truth. Eventually, it became clear that 90% of clown sightings were hoaxes or misidentifications. The actual number of threatening clowns was minimal, and no significant violence ever occurred from the creepy clowns. The stupidity was worldwide panic over people in clown costumes, the closure of schools based on social media rumors, and real violence against professional clowns whose livelihoods were destroyed by unfounded hysteria about scary clowns that were mostly fictional. 7. The satanic panic of the 1980s, 1990s caused mass fear that secret satanic cults were abusing children in daycare centers. Starting in the early 1980s, allegations emerged that daycare facilities were sites of satanic ritual abuse. The panic started with the McMartin preschool trial in California, where staff were accused of satanic abuse of children. The case received massive media coverage. Similar allegations spread nationwide. Hundreds of daycare workers were accused. The claims included impossible allegations, secret tunnels, ritual sacrifices, and abuse involving hundreds of people yet leaving no evidence. Therapists using questionable techniques recovered repressed memories from children describing satanic rituals. Books and media coverage amplified panic. Parents became terrified of daycare. Some states passed laws. Lives were destroyed. Multiple lengthy trials occurred. Eventually, almost all cases were dismissed or overturned. The McMartin case ended with no convictions after the longest and most expensive trial in American history. Investigations found no evidence of organized satanic cult abuse. The recovered memories were found to be implanted by leading questions from therapists and investigators. The panic destroyed lives. Innocent daycare workers went to prison, families were torn apart, and children were traumatized by the investigatory process itself. The stupidity was a nationwide panic based on impossible allegations with zero physical evidence, fueled by pseudoscientific repressed memory therapy and moral panic, resulting in massive miscarriages of justice. 8. The Seattle windshield. Pitting epidemic of 1954 caused panic when people believed a mysterious force was damaging car windshields. Residents of Seattle began reporting small pits and dings in their car windshields. Reports multiplied rapidly. Within days, thousands of people reported damage. Theories emerged: radioactive fallout from recent nuclear tests, cosmic rays, vandalism, and even sonic attacks. Governor of Washington requested federal help. Scientists investigated. Local and national media covered the epidemic extensively. People covered their windshields or parked in garages. The panic spread beyond Seattle. Then scientists determined what was happening. The windshield damage had always been there. It was normal wear and tear from small rocks, gravel, and sand. The epidemic was caused by people suddenly paying close attention to their windshields and noticing existing minor damage they'd previously ignored. It was mass delusion combined with confirmation bias. Once people started looking for damage, they found it everywhere because all windshields accumulate minor pitting over time. Scientists called it mass hysteria, and an example of how suggestion creates perceived epidemics. The stupidity was an entire city panicking about windshield damage that had always existed, demanding government intervention for normal wear and tear, and creating theories about cosmic rays attacking windshields, when the real explanation was simply that people had never looked carefully at their windshields before. 9. The Martian invasion panic in Ecuador in 1949 resulted in riots and a radio station being burned down. Radio Quito in Quito, Ecuador, broadcast their own version of War of the Worlds on February 12, 1949. Like the original, it was presented as news bulletins. The broadcast was in Spanish and localized to Ecuador, reporting Martians landing in nearby towns. Listeners panicked. Unlike the US version, Quito's panic was more intense and violent. When people discovered it was fiction, they became enraged at having been deceived. An angry mob formed and marched to the radio station. The mob set the radio station building on fire. The fire spread to the newspaper building next door. At least 6 people died in the fire, possibly up to 20. Many more were injured. Police and military had to intervene. The aftermath was catastrophic. The radio station was destroyed, people died, and the city experienced riots. Several radio station staff members fled the country. The stupidity was that a radio drama caused not just panic, but violent retribution, resulting in multiple deaths, a radio station being destroyed, and citywide riots over a fictional Martian invasion story that was literally borrowed from a plot everyone knew had caused problems in America 11 years earlier. 10. The 1973 toilet paper shortage panic in the United States was caused by Johnny Carson joking about a shortage, which created an actual shortage. On December 19, 1973, Carson joked during his Tonight Show monologue that there was a toilet paper shortage. He'd heard there might be a shortage due to paper production issues. It was meant as a joke. But viewers took it seriously. The next morning, people rushed to stores and panic-bought toilet paper. Store shelves emptied within hours. The panic buying created an actual shortage where none had existed. Media reported on empty shelves, amplifying panic. More people hoarded. Within days, toilet paper was unavailable in many stores across America. The shortage lasted weeks, not because of production problems, but because of hoarding. Manufacturers had to issue statements that there was no shortage. Carson apologized on air and clarified it had been a joke. But the damage was done. It took a month for supplies to normalize. The stupidity was that a late-night talk show joke caused a nationwide panic, resulting in a real shortage of a product that was in adequate supply until people panicked, and that people trusted Johnny Carson's comedy monologue more than manufacturers' assurances that there was no actual shortage. 11. The Beast of Gévaudan. Panic in 18th century France caused years of terror over what was likely just wolves or large dogs. From 1764-1767, a creature in the Gévaudan region of France attacked and killed over 100 people, mostly women and children. Descriptions varied wildly. Some said it was enormous, others said it was wolf-like but larger. Mass panic spread. The French king sent soldiers to hunt it. Professional wolf hunters were hired. Thousands of people organized hunts. The creature became legendary. Reports described it as supernatural, bulletproof, and intelligent. People believed it was a demon or werewolf. Entire villages lived in terror. Finally, a local hunter killed a large wolf, and attacks stopped. The beast was probably a large wolf or several wolves, possibly rabid or large feral dogs. But the panic had created a mythological monster. Reports became increasingly fantastical as the panic grew. People's fear transformed ordinary wolf attacks into supernatural events. The body count was real, but the beast was simply predatory animals amplified by hysteria, rumor, and folklore. The stupidity was years of nationwide panic, and legendary status given to what was likely normal wolf attacks turned into supernatural demon beasts through mass hysteria, and centuries before anyone understood how fear amplifies perception. 12. The Derbyshire Panic of 1832 was caused by rumors that doctors were murdering people to sell bodies for dissection. In 1832, Derby, England, rumors spread that body snatchers and murderers were providing corpses to medical schools. The rumors were amplified by real historical cases of burking, murders to obtain bodies for anatomy. When a cholera epidemic hit, rumors intensified that doctors were deliberately spreading disease to get bodies. Rioters attacked the Derby Cholera Hospital believing doctors were killing patients. A mob of thousands surrounded the hospital demanding to inspect bodies to verify causes of death. Military troops had to disperse the riot. Similar panics occurred in other British cities. The cholera hospital in Derby was nearly destroyed. The medical profession was blamed for the epidemic. The stupidity was that during a real cholera outbreak, people were so suspicious of doctors that they rioted against the hospital treating patients, believing doctors were killing people rather than trying to save them, turning a public health crisis into an anti-medical mob violence situation. 13. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. In 1944 caused panic in Illinois when residents believed a mysterious figure was gassing people through windows. Starting in September 1944, Mattoon, Illinois residents reported a mysterious person spraying sweet-smelling gas through their windows, causing nausea and paralysis. Police investigated over 20 reported attacks. Panic spread. People armed themselves and formed patrols. Reports became increasingly elaborate. Some claimed to have seen the gasser running away. Media covered the story extensively. Then suddenly, reports stopped. Investigation found no evidence of any attacks. No gas, no gasser, no physical evidence. Psychologists concluded it was mass hysteria. The first few reports might have been actual chemical smells from local industry, but subsequent reports were psychosomatic. People developed real symptoms from anxiety and suggestion. The attacks stopped when media coverage ended. The stupidity was an entire town terrorized by a phantom gasser that never existed, with people developing real physical symptoms from mass hysteria, while police investigated an imaginary criminal. 14. The Pokemon panic in Japan in 1997 caused mass illness when an animated episode triggered seizures in viewers. On December 16, 1997, the Pokemon episode Electric Soldier Porygon aired in Japan. The episode contained a scene with rapid flashing red and blue lights. Within minutes, viewers experienced symptoms: seizures, nausea, headaches, and vision problems. Over 600 children were hospitalized. Ambulances were overwhelmed. News of the incident spread rapidly, causing panic among parents. Some children who hadn't seen the episode reported symptoms after hearing about it: mass psychogenic illness. The actual cause was photosensitive epilepsy triggered by the flashing lights, affecting a small percentage of viewers. But panic led to many more reporting symptoms. Pokemon was suspended from broadcast for months. The episode was never aired again. Extensive studies followed about visual triggers. Warning labels were added to anime. The stupidity wasn't the episode itself. Photosensitive epilepsy is real. But the panic that followed, where hundreds of additional people reported symptoms they didn't have, and worldwide fear that Pokemon was dangerous, led to some countries banning the show, despite the actual problem being one specific scene with flashing lights that could easily be removed. 15. The Great Moon Hoax of 1835 caused widespread panic and excitement when newspapers reported astronomers had discovered life on the moon. The New York Sun published a series of articles claiming astronomer Sir John Herschel had discovered life on the moon using a powerful new telescope. The articles described moon civilization, bat-winged humanoids, and incredible lunar landscapes. The reports were presented as scientific fact, reprinted from a respected journal. People believed it completely. The Sun's circulation exploded. Other newspapers reprinted the stories. Public lectures drew massive crowds. Religious groups debated the theological implications. Some people panicked about moon creatures. Others celebrated the discovery. Scientists were skeptical, but some wanted to believe. Eventually, it was revealed as a complete hoax. The Sun had invented everything to boost sales. No such observations existed. The fictional story was entirely fabricated. Public reaction was mixed. Some were angry, others laughed. The stupidity was that people believed newspaper reports about bat people living on the moon without any verification, that other newspapers reprinted the stories without fact-checking, and that it took weeks before anyone seriously questioned whether maybe the story of discovering civilization on the moon might need some verification. 16. The Port Arthur massacre panic, not the real 1996 shooting, but a hoax, in Australia in 2019 caused evacuations when false reports of active shooters spread on social media. False reports of shootings at Port Arthur Historical Site in Tasmania spread on social media. People began reporting an active shooter situation. Police responded with heavy force. Tourists evacuated. The area was locked down. Emergency services mobilized. Social media amplified the reports. News outlets initially reported an active incident. People hundreds of miles away panicked and kept children home from school, thinking it was a coordinated attack. The panic lasted hours. Then police confirmed there was no shooting. It was entirely fabricated. Someone had posted false reports online and they'd spread virally before verification. The original poster was never identified. The stupidity was that unverified social media post caused a massive emergency response, evacuation of a historical site, and regional panic without anyone confirming whether the reports were real before spreading them or taking action. 17. The Kentucky meat shower of 1876 caused local panic when meat appeared to fall from the sky. On March 3, 1876, chunks of meat fell from the sky onto a Kentucky farm. The meat fell over several minutes, covering an area of 100 yards. Witnesses saw it happening. Some people tasted it to determine what kind of meat it was. This was bad scientific practice even in 1876. Analysis suggested it was lung tissue and cartilage. Various theories emerged: spoiled food disgorged by buzzards flying overhead, a meteorological phenomenon, or divine intervention. Some people panicked, thinking it was a sign of the apocalypse. Religious groups saw it as an omen. Scientists investigated. The most likely explanation was that buzzards flying overhead had disgorged a recent meal of carrion, which fell on the farm. This happens when buzzards need to reduce weight for takeoff. The stupidity was that people panicked about the end times over what was essentially buzzard vomit, and that some people's first reaction to mysterious meat falling from the sky was to taste it. 18. The ghost rocket sightings in Scandinavia in 1946 caused panic that the Soviet Union was testing weapons. Starting in May 1946, Sweden and other Scandinavian countries reported hundreds of sightings of rocket-like objects flying overhead. Reports described cigar-shaped objects, fireballs, and missiles. The Swedish military took it seriously given post-World War II tensions. Over 1,000 reports were filed. People panicked about Soviet weapons testing over neutral Sweden. Defense forces investigated extensively. Some objects were recovered from lakes but turned out to be meteors. Eventually, analysis determined most sightings were meteors during an unusual meteor shower period, combined with misidentified aircraft and mass hysteria. The timing coincided with Cold War anxiety, making people interpret natural phenomena as Soviet weapons. The panic subsided when scientific explanation emerged. The stupidity was that an entire region panicked about Soviet missiles when they were seeing meteors in regular aircraft, and that thousands of reports accumulated before anyone suggested checking if there might be increased meteor activity that year. 19. The dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg caused panic when hundreds of people danced uncontrollably for days. In July 1518, a woman began dancing in the street in Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire. She danced for days continuously. Within a week, 34 people had joined her. Within a month, 400 people were dancing uncontrollably. Many danced until they collapsed from exhaustion. Some died from strokes or heart attacks. Authorities were bewildered. They didn't know what to do. Initially, they thought dancing would cure whatever was causing it, so they built stages and hired musicians. This made it worse. Theories included demonic possession, curse, or divine punishment. Modern theories suggest mass psychogenic illness triggered by stress, or possibly ergot poisoning, a fungus causing hallucinations. The dancing stopped after weeks with no clear resolution. The stupidity was that authorities' response to uncontrollable dancing was to encourage more dancing by providing stages and musicians, making the problem worse, and that hundreds of people danced themselves to death or collapse in a mass hysteria event that remains unexplained centuries later. 20. The Great Emu War Panic in Australia in 1932, while not exactly panic in the traditional sense, caused military mobilization against birds. After WWI, veterans were given farmland in Western Australia. In 1932, 20,000 emus migrated into farming areas and destroyed crops. Farmers demanded military intervention. The military deployed soldiers with machine guns to kill emus. What followed was farcical. Emus scattered at the sound of gunfire and were difficult to hit. The birds used guerrilla tactics, splitting into small groups. After weeks of war, thousands of rounds were fired, but only about 50 emus were killed. The operation was deemed a failure and military withdrew. The Great Emu War became a national embarrassment. Eventually, farmers used fencing and bounty systems. The stupidity was that Australia's military was deployed against large birds and lost, requiring thousands of rounds of ammunition to kill a handful of emus, while the emus' strategy of running away proved superior to machine guns, making it one of the few wars where birds won. 21. The June 1962 epidemic of laughter in Tanganyika caused schools to close when students couldn't stop laughing. At a mission boarding school in Kashasha village, Tanganyika, now Tanzania, 3 girls started laughing. The laughter spread to other students uncontrollably. Within days, 95 of 159 students were affected. The school closed. Students went home spreading the laughter to communities. More schools closed as laughter spread. The epidemic affected over 1,000 people across multiple villages over several months. People laughed uncontrollably for hours or days, unable to stop even when in pain. The condition was mass psychogenic illness triggered by stress. Modern analysis suggests it was a stress response to social pressures in mission schools. The laughter was involuntary, distressing, and sometimes accompanied by crying and pain. It eventually subsided. The stupidity wasn't that people were laughing, it was mass hysteria manifesting as laughter, but rather that an entire region experienced school closures and social disruption because people literally couldn't stop laughing in what remains one of history's strangest mass hysteria events. 22. The Phantom Slasher of Taipei caused panic in 1956 when rumors spread of someone slashing people with razors. Reports emerged in Taipei, Taiwan, of a mysterious person slashing victims with razors. Over 20 people reported being slashed. Panic spread rapidly. Police mobilized to find the slasher. People armed themselves. The reports increased. Schools warned students. Eventually, investigation found no slasher. The slash marks were mostly scratches from everyday accidents that people attributed to an attacker after hearing the rumors. Some were entirely imagined. Medical examination found injuries weren't consistent with razor attacks. It was mass hysteria. People attributed normal scratches to a phantom attacker, and some people developed psychosomatic injuries. The panic ended when authorities announced there was no slasher. The stupidity was that an entire city lived in fear of a phantom slasher that didn't exist, with people attributing normal scratches and bumps to a mysterious criminal, and police spending resources investigating attacks that never occurred. 23. The Chupacabra panic starting in Puerto Rico in 1995 caused fear across Latin America and the southern United States. Reports emerged from Puerto Rico of a creature killing livestock and draining their blood. The creature was described variably: reptilian, alien-like, with spines. Panic spread as livestock deaths increased. The Chupacabra, goatsucker, became legendary. Sightings spread to Mexico, Central America, and southern United States. People armed themselves against the creature. Some claimed government cover-ups. Alleged bodies were examined. Every single Chupacabra body examined turned out to be a mangy coyote or dog, suffering from severe mange, a skin disease that removes fur and makes animals look alien-like. The livestock deaths were from normal predation by coyotes and dogs. The stupidity was that an entire region panicked about a cryptid creature when they were actually just seeing sick coyotes, and that despite every single supposed Chupacabra corpse being identified as a mangy dog or coyote, believers maintained that the real Chupacabra was still out there. 24. The Slender Man panic starting in 2014 caused parental fear about internet horror affecting children. Slender Man was a fictional horror character created in online forums in 2009. In 2014, two 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin stabbed a classmate 19 times, claiming they did it to appease Slender Man. The victim survived. Media coverage was extensive. Parents panicked about internet creepypasta, horror stories, corrupting children. Schools sent warnings. Some schools banned discussion of Slender Man. Parents monitored internet usage intensely. The incident sparked debates about internet safety and mental health. The girls were tried and convicted. Mental health evaluations revealed they had pre-existing conditions. Slender Man didn't cause their crime. They had mental illness and fixated on the character. Millions of people had encountered Slender Man online without becoming violent. The stupidity was treating a fictional internet horror character as a dangerous influence requiring warnings and bans, when the actual issue was untreated mental illness in two individuals, not a fictional monster that millions of people had encountered without incident. 25. The Brussels airport false alarm panic in 2016 caused evacuations and chaos based on cheering football fans. Shortly after terrorist attacks in Brussels, nerves were raw. On June 15, 2016, at Brussels Airport, Belgian football fans began cheering and making noise while watching a European Championship match on phones. Other travelers, jumpy from recent attacks, interpreted the noise as sounds of panic or an attack. People began screaming and running. The panic spread. Hundreds of people fled the terminal in terror. Police responded to reports of active threats. The airport was partially evacuated. It took time to determine it was a false alarm caused by football fans cheering. Some travelers were injured in the stampede. The stupidity was that cheering sports fans caused airport evacuation and stampede injuries because people were so on edge from recent attacks that they interpreted celebration noises as terrorism, resulting in actual harm from fleeing a threat that didn't exist. 26. The Halifax slasher of 1938 in England was a phantom attacker who turned out to be mass hysteria. In November 1938, Halifax, England experienced reports of a mysterious slasher attacking people at night. Multiple people reported being slashed or cut. Police investigated. Panic spread. People stayed indoors at night. Vigilante groups formed. More attacks were reported. Then police arrested several people, not for being the slasher, but for filing false reports. Investigation found no slasher existed. People had inflicted injuries on themselves or fabricated attacks for attention. Some injuries were from accidents blamed on an attacker. It was mass hysteria. Once initial reports emerged, more people fabricated attacks. 5 people were convicted of making false reports and served jail time. The stupidity was that an entire town was terrorized by a slasher that never existed, with people injuring themselves for attention and police resources spent investigating fabricated attacks, leading to people being jailed, not for slashing others, but for slashing themselves and blaming imaginary attackers. 27. The Zika virus panic of 2016 was disproportionate to actual risk in areas with no mosquito transmission. Zika virus emerged as a major concern due to its link to birth defects when pregnant women were infected. The risk was real in areas with Zika-transmitting mosquitoes. However, panic extended to areas with no risk. The 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio faced boycott calls from athletes. Travel to South America plummeted. Pregnant women in the United States without any travel history or exposure avoided going outside in fear. Some regions without the mosquito species that transmits Zika implemented expensive mosquito control. The panic far exceeded the risk. Zika wasn't transmitted in most of the United States because the mosquito species wasn't present. The stupidity was worldwide panic in areas with zero risk of transmission, with people in Alaska worrying about Zika when the mosquito that carries it can't survive there, and tourism industries being destroyed in regions that had no Zika transmission. 28. The Great Northeast Blackout of 1965 caused panic in New York when people didn't know what had happened. On November 9, 1965, a cascading power failure left 30 million people without electricity across the northeastern United States and Ontario. In New York City, the blackout happened suddenly at 5:27 p.m. People were trapped in elevators and subways. In 1965, during Cold War tensions, many people immediately assumed it was a Soviet attack or prelude to invasion. Some people believed nuclear war had started and this was the beginning. Emergency lines were overwhelmed. Police and emergency services struggled to respond. Traffic was paralyzed. Looting didn't occur. People actually cooperated remarkably well. The blackout lasted up to 13 hours in some areas. Eventually, authorities determined it was caused by a relay malfunction, not an attack. The stupidity was that people's first assumption about a power outage was nuclear war rather than technical failure, causing unnecessary terror until the simple explanation emerged that it was just an equipment malfunction at a power station. 29. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic, mentioned earlier, deserves more detail about its spread and impact on society. The laughter epidemic of 1962 wasn't just students laughing, it was a serious mass psychogenic illness that disrupted society for months. After starting in one school, it spread through communities as infected students went home. Symptoms included uncontrollable laughter, but also crying, screaming, and in some cases, aggressive behavior and temporary paralysis. 14 schools closed, affecting thousands of students. Villages were disrupted. The epidemic followed social networks. It affected people who knew each other and were under similar stress. Medical authorities struggled to explain it. Traditional healers claimed spiritual causes. Missionaries blamed local spiritual practices. Eventually, the epidemic burned out after affecting over 1,000 people. Modern analysis suggests it was collective stress response to social upheaval during Tanzania's transition to independence and pressures of mission school life. The stupidity was that despite clear evidence it spread through social networks and wasn't infectious, authorities closed schools and quarantined areas as if it were a biological disease, when actually addressing underlying social stresses would have been more effective than treating it as an infectious outbreak of laughter. 30. The Satanic Panic, mentioned earlier, had a specific impact on role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons. In the 1980s, Christian groups claimed D&D caused Satanism, suicide, and murder. Parents panicked. Schools banned the game. A case of missing teen James Dallas Egbert III was incorrectly attributed to D&D, leading to massive publicity. The 1982 TV movie Mazes and Monsters depicted D&D causing mental breakdown. Churches burned D&D books. Parents destroyed their children's game materials. Support groups formed to help people escape D&D addiction. Despite zero evidence that D&D caused harm, players were statistically less likely to have problems than non-players. The panic persisted for years. Lives were disrupted, a hobby was demonized, and the gaming community faced persecution. Eventually, the panic subsided as evidence mounted that D&D was harmless. The stupidity was that parents destroyed their children's game books and communities banned a creative storytelling game based on moral panic and religious hysteria, treating dice and paper games as gateways to devil worship despite complete absence of evidence. 31. The June 1962 epidemic isn't just about laughter. There was also the Tanganyika epidemic, more broadly showing mass psychogenic illness patterns. Beyond laughter, mass psychogenic illness manifests in various ways. The Tanganyika case showed how stress created physical symptoms. People genuinely suffered. The laughter was painful, uncontrollable, and distressing. Some people were laughing and crying simultaneously. The illness followed social lines, affecting girls more than boys and spreading through friendship networks. Western medicine couldn't explain it because it wasn't biological. Traditional explanations blamed spirits or curses. The real cause was collective psychological stress manifesting physically. Similar cases have occurred throughout history during times of social stress. The stupidity was treating a psychological, social phenomenon as a biological disease, trying to quarantine it, and failing to address underlying social stresses that caused the outbreak in the first place. 32. The satanic panic had another aspect. The ritual abuse allegations that destroyed families even when physical evidence was impossible. In satanic panic cases, children described impossible abuse scenarios, being taken to underground chambers that didn't exist, witnessing murders that produced no bodies, and participating in rituals involving hundreds of people who left no evidence. Investigators ignored the impossibility. Families were torn apart. Children were removed from homes based on recovered memories. Parents went to prison. Eventually, many convictions were overturned when it became clear the memories were implanted by therapists using leading questions. Physical searches found none of the alleged tunnels, chambers, or burial sites. Expert analysis showed the allegations were impossible. The stupidity was that impossibility didn't stop prosecutions. If children described underground chambers instead of accepting that the chambers didn't exist, prosecutors argued the chambers were too well hidden, rather than recognizing that the memories were false. 33. The McMartin preschool trial specifically showed how satanic panic destroyed lives based on no evidence. The McMartin case began in 1983 when a mother claimed her son was abused. She later was found to be mentally ill and her initial claims were delusional. But by then, investigators had questioned hundreds of children using leading questions. Children described impossible abuse scenarios. The trial lasted 7 years and cost $15 million, the longest and most expensive trial in U.S. history. No physical evidence was found despite extensive searches for underground tunnels. All defendants were either acquitted or had charges dropped. Lives were destroyed. The McMartin school closed. Teachers lost careers. But most tragic were the children who were subjected to aggressive questioning that implanted false memories, traumatizing them with memories of abuse that never happened. The stupidity was spending $15 million in 7 years prosecuting people based on impossible allegations with zero physical evidence, traumatizing children through interrogation, and destroying a school based on the delusions of one mentally ill parent. 34. The Y2K panic, mentioned earlier, also had a survivalist component where people prepared for complete social collapse. Some people sold their homes and moved to remote areas. Survivalists stocked years of supplies. Religious groups prepared for the apocalypse. Some people quit their jobs to prepare full-time. Communities formed in rural areas to survive the collapse. When Y2K passed without incident, these people had destroyed their lives for nothing. Some lost all their money. Families were torn apart. People who'd sold homes and businesses found themselves unable to return to their previous lives. Some survivalist communities persisted even after Y2K proved uneventful, believing the disaster was merely delayed. The stupidity was that people destroyed their actual lives preparing for a collapse that never came, and some never recovered from the financial and social damage they'd inflicted on themselves preparing for Y2K. 35. The Texas textbook panic of 2014 caused fear that Islamic teachings were being forced into schools. A false rumor spread that Texas schools were teaching Islamic law and requiring students to recite Islamic prayers. Parents panicked and protested. School board meetings were disrupted. Death threats were made against school officials. The rumor was completely false. Schools were teaching world religions as part of geography curriculum, including Christianity, Islam, and other religions. Students weren't required to practice any religion. Despite schools providing evidence that the rumor was false, the panic persisted. Some parents removed children from school. The stupidity was that despite clear evidence that schools were teaching about world religions as part of required curriculum, not requiring practice of any religion, parents panicked about Islamic indoctrination that wasn't happening, threatening teachers and officials over a false rumor. 36. The Pokemon Go panic of 2016 caused fear that the game was dangerous and leading to trespassing. When Pokemon Go became popular, media reported accidents and trespassing incidents. Some reports were exaggerated. Parents panicked that children would be hit by cars or trespass on property. Some religious groups claimed the game was satanic or addictive. Property owners posted "No Pokemon Go" signs. Some municipalities tried to ban the game. A few serious incidents occurred. Some players were hurt while not paying attention, but millions played safely. The panic was disproportionate to actual risk. More people are hurt walking while texting than ever were hurt playing Pokemon Go. The stupidity was treating a mobile game as a public safety crisis requiring bans and warnings, when the actual issue was people not paying attention to their surroundings while using phones. A problem that existed long before Pokemon Go, and continues regardless of which app people are using. 37. The Ebola panic in the United States in 2014 was disproportionate to actual risk. During the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, a few cases appeared in the United States. Media coverage was extensive and fear-driven. People panicked despite extremely low risk. Schools closed if students had traveled to Africa, even if nowhere near Ebola zones. Healthcare workers returning from treating Ebola were quarantined and treated as threats. Some states implemented mandatory quarantines. Politicians used Ebola as a political issue. Despite only 11 people treated for Ebola in the US with 2 deaths, the panic was nationwide. People avoided hospitals. African immigrants faced discrimination. Some people refused to fly. The actual risk of contracting Ebola in the United States was essentially zero. Ebola isn't airborne and requires direct contact with fluids. The stupidity was that America panicked about a disease that affected fewer than a dozen people nationwide, while ignoring actual threats like seasonal flu that kills tens of thousands annually, demonstrating how rare exotic diseases create more fear than common deadly diseases. 38. The New York City's false earthquake panic of 2023 was brief, but showed social media panic dynamics. On November 3, 2023, a loud boom was heard in New York City. Social media exploded with reports ranging from earthquake to explosion to meteor. Within minutes, thousands of tweets speculated about terrorism, military exercises, or alien invasion. Emergency lines were overwhelmed. Some buildings evacuated. Eventually, authorities determined it was a meteorite or possibly sonic boom from military aircraft. The entire panic lasted less than an hour, but showed how quickly modern social media amplifies unknown events into panic. The stupidity was that New York City briefly panicked about everything from earthquakes in a non-earthquake zone to aliens based on a loud noise, and that social media spread panic faster than authorities could provide information, resulting in evacuations and emergency calls about a noise. 39. The gas attack. Panic in Pennsylvania in 2018 wasn't an actual attack, but people's reaction to a gas leak created mass hysteria. A natural gas leak in a Pennsylvania building caused a smell. Some people reported feeling dizzy or nauseous, normal reactions to gas smell. But as rumors spread, dozens more reported symptoms inconsistent with gas exposure. People reported seizures, vision problems, and fainting, symptoms not caused by the natural gas involved. It was mass psychogenic illness. Once people heard others were sick, they developed symptoms. Over 50 people sought medical treatment, even though testing showed minimal gas exposure insufficient to cause the reported symptoms. The stupidity was that a minor gas leak requiring normal evacuation turned into mass hysteria, with dozens reporting symptoms from psychological suggestion rather than actual exposure. 40. The creepy clown panic of 2016 mentioned earlier had specific impacts, including professional clowns losing their livelihoods. Professional clowns who had worked children's parties for decades suddenly found themselves unemployed. Parents canceled bookings. Some clowns were harassed or threatened. Clown associations issued statements. The panic destroyed a profession temporarily. People in clown costumes, professional performers, were attacked by vigilantes thinking they were the creepy clowns. Hospital clown programs that bring joy to sick children were suspended. The entire clown industry suffered. Eventually, the panic subsided and most of the creepy clown sightings were revealed as hoaxes or misidentifications. The stupidity was that an entire profession was destroyed by social media panic about clowns that were mostly fictional, with real professional clowns losing work and facing violence because people couldn't distinguish between internet pranks and professional entertainers. 41. The Thai massage parlor. Panic varied by location, but one notable case was in the US in 2019. False rumors spread in some communities that local massage businesses were fronts for human trafficking. Some allegations were based on misunderstanding of normal business practices. In one case, a legitimate business was destroyed by rumors. Protesters gathered. Police investigated, finding no trafficking. The business closed due to lost revenue and harassment. The owners, immigrants who'd worked legitimately for years, lost their livelihood. Eventually, it was revealed the rumors started from a misunderstanding and possible xenophobia. Similar panics have occurred in multiple countries. The stupidity was that legitimate businesses were destroyed by rumors, with people assuming massage parlors were criminal based on stereotypes and misunderstandings, and that communities shut down legal businesses without evidence of wrongdoing. 42. The 5G coronavirus conspiracy panic of 2020 caused people to attack cell towers believing 5G caused COVID-19. A conspiracy theory emerged claiming 5G cellular networks caused or spread COVID-19. The theory was scientifically impossible. Viruses aren't spread by radio waves. Despite this, the theory spread online. People began vandalizing and burning cell towers in multiple countries. Telecom workers were threatened and attacked. Some towers destroyed were actually 3G or 4G, not even 5G. Countries had to deploy security for cell towers. The conspiracy persisted despite scientists explaining that radio waves can't transmit viruses. The stupidity was that people committed arson and assault based on a theory that violated basic physics and biology, destroying telecommunications infrastructure during a pandemic when communication was crucial, and attacking towers that weren't even the 5G towers they believed were harmful. 43. The Fukushima radiation panic on the US West Coast in 2011 was disproportionate to actual risk. After Japan's Fukushima nuclear disaster, panic spread to the US West Coast. People bought radiation detectors and iodine pills. Some avoided seafood. Reports claimed Pacific Ocean radiation made beaches unsafe. Despite scientists explaining that radiation reaching the US coast was minimal and well below dangerous levels, less than background radiation from natural sources, people panicked. Some people avoided all Japanese products. Tourism dropped in West Coast areas. Fish populations were tested extensively, showing radiation at harmless levels. The stupidity was that people panicked about radiation levels far below what they're exposed to naturally from bananas, which contain radioactive potassium, while ignoring actual environmental threats, demonstrating how nuclear accidents create disproportionate fear compared to actual risk. 44. The Tide Pod? Challenge panic of 2018 was media-amplified concern about teenagers eating detergent. Reports emerged of teenagers filming themselves eating Tide Pods, laundry detergent packets, as an internet challenge. Media coverage was extensive. Parents and politicians panicked. Schools issued warnings. Some politicians proposed legislation. The reality was that very few teenagers actually did this. Most Tide Pod challenge videos were jokes or fake. The American Association of Poison Control Centers reported only 39 intentional exposures by teenagers in 2018 out of millions of teenagers. More concerning was that small children had been accidentally ingesting them for years, over 12,000 cases in children under 5 in previous years. But that didn't get media attention until the Teen Challenge narrative emerged. The stupidity was massive panic and proposed legislation over 39 teenagers eating detergent while thousands of toddler poisonings annually had been ignored, showing how Teen Internet Challenge narrative created more panic than an actual ongoing poisoning problem in young children. 45. And finally, the Great Clown Panic of 2016 deserves a third mention for its full scope. Became a worldwide phenomenon that revealed how social media creates and spreads panic. What started as reports of creepy clowns in one US state spread globally within weeks. Reports came from Australia, where clown sightings were reported in multiple cities. European countries reported clowns. Most sightings were hoaxes or people in clown costumes pranking others. Some were entirely fabricated. People claimed to see clowns that never existed. Professional clown conventions discussed the crisis. Clown performers faced death threats. Some schools banned clown imagery. Halloween clown costume sales dropped. Professional clown associations begged people to distinguish between criminal behavior and professional entertainment. Several arrested creepy clowns were teenagers pranking or attention-seeking. The panic ended almost as quickly as it began, with most clowns never identified because they didn't exist. The stupidity was that a worldwide panic was created by social media amplifying reports of people in clown costumes, which happened every Halloween, and turning seasonal costumes into an international crisis. The panic showed how social media creates mass hysteria from nothing, how humans seek patterns even in random events, and how quickly panic spreads when media amplifies fear regardless of actual threat. Professional clowns, entertainers who bring joy to children, became targets of violence and harassment because people couldn't distinguish between creepy internet stories and birthday party entertainers. Schools closed, police mobilized internationally, and communities panicked worldwide over something that was 90% fabricated, 9% harmless pranks, and 1% actual threatening behavior. The entire phenomenon revealed humanity's capacity for collective fear of something that essentially didn't exist, spread through social media faster than facts could contain it, and damaged an entire profession of legitimate entertainers because people believed internet stories about evil clowns lurking in woods, when statistically they were more likely to be killed by falling furniture than by any clown, evil or otherwise. Subscribe if you want to remember that most panics are about things that aren't actually dangerous, that social media and media coverage amplify fear faster than facts can spread, that people will believe impossible things and resist correction, and that the next time you hear about a panic-inducing threat, the scariest thing probably isn't the threat itself, but how quickly millions of people will believe it without verification and take actions that cause more harm than any real threat would have caused.